For more on relations between EU and Cuba, I spoke earlier with Pedro Freyre. He's the chair of Ackerman's international practice in Miami. I asked him about the significance of French President François Hollande's visit to Cuba.
Well, I think the significance lies in the fact that this is the first visit, not only by a French dignitary at that level, but also the first visit by a president of a Western country. I think the signal there is that France, a close ally of the United States, is supporting the new opening by the U.S. and trying to reach out to Cuba so that Cuba would open itself up.
So what about in terms of Cuba's relationship with France? Those two countries have always had good relations. So what about the impact as far as French businesses go, the ramifications there?
I think that what is happening, and you see it with this visit by President Hollande, and you also saw a high-level delegation from Spanish businessmen. I think everybody's jumping on the U.S. bandwagon, if you will. As the U.S. opens up trade with Cuba and the opportunity for U.S. businesses to do more deals with Cuba opens up, other countries see that the Cuban economy will likely begin to grow, and they want a piece of the action.
And what areas or industries, shall we say, can Cuba and the European Union develop closer ties?
I think the first one, sort of the most obvious one, is travel and tourism. Cuba is an absolutely beautiful island. I was there until last Friday. The opportunities are fantastic in that arena. There's a lot of work to be done. They have at least the very beginnings of a tourism industry, but it's virtually virgin territory. And the attraction, I think, is to cater to top-level American tourists who see Cuba sort of as the forbidden paradise.
And what about the thawing of relations between U.S. and Cuba that I already mentioned, its ramifications on EU-Cuba trade ties?
Well, I think that as a function of more solid ties with the United States, the European Union will feel more secure, the participant countries will feel more secure, and have a surer bet in increasing trade with Cuba. And obviously, there will be a greater demand for goods originating in the European Union.
And Pedro, EU has given Cuba money in areas like food security, climate change. Do you expect that to continue?
I do. I think that one of the rationales for this push by the United States in particular to warm relations with Cuba is the understanding on both sides of the Florida Straits that there's a commonality of interest having to do with things like climate change, weather, drug trafficking, immigration, and so forth. So I think you're going to continue to see cooperation, and as the Cuban economy begins to grow with their new private sector taking off, you're going to see greater ability for Cuba to seek financing in the world markets.
With Hollande's visit to Cuba, do you foresee other top European leaders making similar visits to Havana in the coming weeks or months?
It's possible in the coming months that you may see. Let's see how the dust settles in England. Italy has some relations. Germany, not so much. Of course, the big player there is Spain. Spain has been active in Cuba all along. They never completely broke relations with Cuba. And Spain has taken always a leadership role in the EU. So I think we need to look for Spain for guidance on whether other countries will also jump in.
As far as the United States relations with Cuba go, when do you think we will see embassies in both countries?
Well, it's very funny because, as I said, I just came from there, and there is this wonderful tall building in a beautiful location in El Malecón in La Habana, which is the U.S. Embassy building, and right now, theoretically, it houses the interest section. So I think that one is just a matter of kind of changing the name on the door. The toughest part of it is what goes along with it. For example, one point that is being negotiated very toughly is the access of U.S. Embassy officials to the rest of the island and their ability to travel. It's tough to predict. I think it'll take months before it's done, but it's difficult for me to envision that it won't be done by the end of the year. So my prediction, I'll go on the record as saying no later than the end of the year.
And what about expectations for François Hollande's next stop in Haiti?
Well, Haiti, of course, is a former colony of France, so there's a very special bond there, much like the one between Cuba and Spain. So I believe that Hollande will be received in a very warm way, and it creates expectations also for Haiti that France will now have a greater interest and greater participation in the redevelopment of Haiti post-earthquake.